Well, terrific. Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for participating and joining the session today. This is David Wangard again, and with our Achieving with Integrity project, my distinguished colleague Jason Stevens is in Germany as we speak, and he may be on or just getting off a plane. But our kickoff webinar this afternoon was basically to get ourselves reoriented to some of our vocabulary and review the applications we want to make and look at a timeline for the fall. Things are going to get by us pretty quick this fall, as we all know how our fall semester can rush by. So just the objectives that we are apt to do is we do want to look at our application of the full model now and to refresh our memory about our objectives and language. The lesson plans, again, that I commented before we started, very pleased to see the progress we're making there and to look at our schedule and goals. And I want to have some time for your questions at the end today. So, just to increase our understanding of the four-component model and just refinement of our lesson plans as you may see that as appropriate from this discussion. And so today we're looking really at the teaching and the assessment of our lessons, and we're as we do is point out that we're using REST's four-component model and the adaptation of it that we are making. And so just to begin with a look at this big picture, and hopefully this is a familiar graphic to all of us now. And so we look at the core questions that we're involved with, and as you saw on our last lesson, those core questions really boil down to what we're hoping the students would be able to respond to. What's moral, what's right, why should I be good, and how do I do it? And we'll see at the end how many of the specific lesson steps that we've taught through our lesson progress, how many they see are important, how many they're recalling, and they'll have some reflection on it, as you've seen in lesson 5. But these would be the type of things that we would like the students to be able to come away with, so that if somebody approaches them in the lunchroom and is asking for some solicitation of some cheating support for a test that they're going to face, that the young people themselves would be able to have this go through their mind, given the practice that we've had in class, and make these judgments in under 30 seconds that they'll need to be doing if they are going to be able to respond to a peer. So the case with the moral content and the 4 steps, the 4 components that we've looked at are moral awareness, judgment, commitment, and action. And I want to introduce today possibly a language that we haven't used, but it's going to show up in our lesson observation protocol. And so when we talk about the key concepts associated with each of these components, we've recognized for the moral awareness that we want Jonathan Haidt's 5 ethics to be understood, and some definition of them and maybe examples so the young people can see how these 5 ethics can serve them as they're making some analysis of whether there's a moral situation present. So those 5 ethics that we've identified, the fairness, care, loyalty, authority, and sanctity. And for the sanctity, I've pointed out to you personally, and particularly for the lessons that we're doing, that this could particularly define integrity, and that you're keeping your integrity intact. You're not violating that integrity. So that would at least be one way that we've talked in the past about how sanctity, which has much broader applications, obviously, but within our project, the idea of integrity for their ethical principles. And then the activity protocol, and I've had discussions with several of your teams, recognizing that the protocol itself and our use of these little acronyms, AMAP, that is not content that we're concerned about, that you or even the kids know what AMAP is. It's a label. Some of you have suggested other labels, but the protocol within the content obviously is important to us, and so some of the lessons, some of the wonderful lessons that we've seen actually integrate the AMAP process with some academic content and then practice it with the direct academic integrity case. And that was the minimal goal, to practice it with one academic integrity case that we'd asked, but it was wonderful to see where some of you have had a double dose, as it were, if we use some medical language, to integrate the AMAP into something of your curriculum and then bring that directly to some academic integrity case. So for moral awareness, the AMAP protocol is something that we do want the students to be able to practice. For moral judgment, we've recognized and excuse me, taught about Jonathan Turiel's work with the lenses of decision making and how we want the young people to be able to recognize these three lenses: the personal one, the social conventional, and the moral lenses of reasoning. And that's embedded within our protocol for the EDMA, the ethical decision making activity. And again, the jargon of the acronym is not anything that we're worried about, but the processes within it, and those key concepts within it, we're hoping your students will understand as they get through the lessons. The moral commitment, here's where students are prioritizing their moral goals as opposed to, and I think everybody in their lessons has got this now, the moral judgment lesson 2 is looking at the third person, the ethical person X, whereas then we shift it into the moral commitment about me, the first person. How am I going to prioritize my moral goals and behavior and identify it with values? And that's our VIPA. And the VIPA activity is helping the student to recognize what their commitment's going to be, in addition to understanding rationalizations that we've learned from Bandura that can resist someone picking the high road, the ethical road. And so we want the kids to actually be able to resist those rationalizations, right? So one step is at least to identify them and identify the values that should supersede them. And for moral action, we recognize that the students should understand and be able to apply a moral will and skill. And within that lesson, we identified 2 different components. One are either academic or specific academic integrity skills that can help them resist, in addition to the will. The will was manifest in our lesson by our request that the students write their own personal integrity statement. The skill was represented by any number of different skills. We said you could select one, though, that we did ask was to have the kids be able to practice some refusal or reframing skill if given the opportunity or challenged by some academic dishonesty opportunity. So our activity protocol that we wanted the young people to practice then with an academic integrity case was our SWAP. So again, for the big picture, if we're going in the direction, a positive direction, and we've mentioned this earlier, Jason is more keen to emphasize this, we're really providing our students an opportunity, right? We're providing them the opportunity to make these decisions. We're not trying to be as prescriptive about saying you must go in these directions, but we're obviously casting a vision of the importance of moral integrity and within this whole 4-component model. But we really want you to be providing these opportunities and allowing the young people to use reasoning to help them get there. So if in their moral case, if they had this situation that we know happens so often, that in between classes a peer or a friend is asking for certain help, there is a desired response. Clearly we're looking for the ethical response, but we don't want to be insinuating or grading on whether they get that desired response right. It's more we'd like them to see and recognize the Height's intuitive ethics in this, and in this case, if I'm asked to help a friend on a cheating or to give them information on an exam, I recognize that there's fairness to other students involved here, loyalty maybe to my own family name, the teacher, respect for authority and sanctity, as I point out, related to protecting my own integrity. The moral judgment now, so there is a moral cause. We don't want the young people to say, yeah, I see there's moral issues at play here. For lesson 2, the moral judgment, again, this is a desired response, but we're not grading the responses whether they reach the desired ones. We do want them to see them thinking about it. And a desired response could be, you know, I don't want to share test questions because it's not fair to others and it violates the trust of others. And again, it's one shouldn't, right? It's the third person, the moral person X. Now I get to what am I going to do? I'm not going to share the exam questions because of my commitment. And what commitment does the kid have? It could be on the personal level. I don't want to get caught, right? So that commitment would be to, you know, I don't want to be disciplined for being caught. This one we raise to the moral standard of saying I'm committed to fairness and don't want to allow a friendship to rationalize my cheating. So yeah, the answers could come in at a personal level, to keep a moral commitment or a social convention. I want to do it because I want to obey the rules. That would be a social conventional one. But here we're saying this higher goal of I'm committed to fairness. And lastly, the moral action. What did I do? How did I do it? I didn't share, but I offered to help my friend to study. This would be a reframe, right? Not going to share the test questions directly, but I will help you, you know, and I can help you focus just like anybody else could help in the lunchroom, somebody without offering the specific test questions. So the point of this slide is just to rehearse again among ourselves is the recognition that there are optimal and desired responses, but we're not grading the young people, and we hope the spirit of this is not to grade the young people for necessarily these correct responses, but giving them the opportunity to use reasoning and practice with our skill sets here, the 4 components. So much of what we've done is growing resource on our project blog, and so this is a critical piece for everybody to be able to access. There's been some additions to it since you may have checked onto it, and one is a calendar plug-in that we'll talk about in a little bit. Another is our extra examples of cases that are available for you to work from. You'll see when the kids do the preliminary pre-lesson survey, some of those cases that will be in the student survey are cases that we've cited in our lessons. Jason and I made the determination to leave those and not to frustrate you to say, well, I can't use them in class now. Some of you may decide you'd want to build on those cases in the class and continue to use them. Or if you feel like, oh, okay, they've used it, they don't need to see that one again, then you could use additional cases that we've placed online. So that just becomes your choice. And the project blog now does have a remarkable and I think wonderful set of examples that you all have contributed to in terms of lessons. So we're just very pleased about that. And my point here is only to bring out this vocabulary one more time. I hope you don't think I'm harping on our acronyms, but it does get to the place where it's useful just to have a label, right? So that's really what we're using this for, is just to label what we're doing. And lesson 1 on the blog about moral awareness and our AMAP, the analysis of moral awareness protocol. Our lesson 2 with our EDMA, the ethical decision-making activity. Lesson 3 with our VIPA and the values identification and prioritization activity. Lesson 4 with our SWAP, skills and will for action protocol. So all of these now are online, and our 5th synthesis lesson, which basically is in giving the young people an opportunity to try to put it all together and then tell us, you know, which components of this they're recalling and feeling is important to them, and how that's helping them with their decision making. And then a last thing that was just put on today is one draft observation protocol, and you'll recognize that as part of our grant and part of this piloting of these lessons, I'm to sit in on at least 2 of your lessons. And we understand that the possibility that logistics prevents that is to the extreme, that we're condensing all these lessons within a 3 or 4 week period, and the possibility that I won't get into 2-year lessons. We've asked, and that's why we've wanted to develop this digital recording capability, right? And while protecting your students' anonymity and not focusing on them, it should be just focused on you and how we can get a sense of how the students are participating. But the protocol for this, we're required by our grant to check on fidelity of your lesson instruction. And so this is something that I'm going to be asking today. Jason and I are both asking if you would be able to take the time, look this over. This is a draft, and we want your feedback. I'm feeling quite good about it, but we're wanting this as your own checklist, and that's why I use some of the vocabulary that I did today, but it's also the protocol that we plan on using to have some measure of fidelity of the implementation of the lesson that we can present to our grant funders. So that brings us back to, you know, the importance of our lesson planning templates, and that if you plan any changes, just let me know, because I will before I do any observations, I would like to be able to see the lesson plan and just be able to attend to what changes that you're involved in. So, you know, you're familiar with this outline to a great degree now. The idea that we are wanting you to identify the setting and materials, and the materials including, you know, one of the protocols appropriate for the lesson, establishing your goals and objectives, and recognizing that these core questions and key concepts and the protocol itself are going to be part of what's covered within the lesson. And then we divided up our activities into inquiry-based and direct instruction, and you're familiar with this, obviously, within our lesson outline and how you would describe your activities. And finally, the informal check with the questions that you can ask, but the formal assessment being that we want, at least as a minimum, one of the specific protocols either done through, some of you are using the activity sheet itself, which is fine, and that's a formal check, and we'd like to be collecting those kind of things. Or if the students are writing essays with the understanding that they use the protocol from AMAP, EDMA, VIP, or SWAP, so that's what can be formally assessed at the end of each lesson. So to look to our timeline now for the fall, obviously today is our kickoff webinar, and we're just trying to meet the objectives that we've cited earlier. And then we have, there are few still lessons that are dangling out there. I'm asking if everybody could wrap that up by September 3. And again, I do encourage you to see what's being collected now on our ethics blog, our project blog. And then the digital filming of an intro. I really am hoping that we haven't made, I mean, for some of you guys have done great on that, and I wish we could have the time for people just to share their lessons about doing it. But again, what's the point? If I can't make it to your school for a lesson that you're going to do, it's incumbent upon us to try to find some way, and if we could do this digitally filming, you place it on YouTube for just my eyes, right, then I can complete our lesson observation protocol, and we're all good. But the intro of that we were requesting last spring is basically to hear you give some and have the skill to work with your lesson outline, and we're understanding and you're having confidence, and we're being able to affirm that confidence that you have in your lesson outline, and then just the specific technical task of posting to YouTube and making that shareable with me. Some 5-10 minutes, you know, tops. Most are under 5 minutes for these kind of intros. And also, I will say this, for those that haven't done this yet, some schools all the participants have done it together. So they've done their taping and did their, and so they showed us they could do it, right, and they had the discussion and were revealing their you know, mastery of the material through that. So if you want to do it together, that's even acceptable. But we are asking, we don't want this to become a stumbling block when we're having all these different lessons trying to be handled and still having that be a technical problem. So we want to get that one done as early as possible. I've only had one school say that there was any other protocol necessary to do the student survey work, so I'm hoping everybody else is good with that from the administrative standpoint. We do have right now a URL that is available to each and every one of you, so there'll be a unique URL that you would use for your students to have them take the pre-lessons SurveyMonkey survey for the students, and you'll need to plan on about 20 minutes. Some kids will finish it a little earlier. Could some go a little longer? Possibly, but I don't know of anybody else that has said we need to do any other administrative permissions to get this done. So when you'll need to just communicate with me when you want to schedule this. I'll give you the URL, and whether you have the kids do it, if you have roving carts of computers that they can take them in your class, or whether you all need to go to a computer lab, you'll need that 15 to 20 minutes plus to have the students take their SurveyMonkey surveys using the URL we'll give you. And again, emphasizing, don't use a colleague's. If you're on a team, don't grab a colleague's URL and just use that one. Please use the one that we assign to you. And then, so this baseline survey needs to take place as soon as possible, and certainly before any lessons are taught, right? And then we're hoping that once that happens and you kick off, whenever you kick off your lesson 1, that it all gets wrapped up within a 3-week plus time period, right? We don't want this, we definitely don't want it going into the 5th week, and if we can do under 4 weeks, that's great. And as I've mentioned before, 2 of these lessons I would like to be able to observe in person or via some other means, whether someone films it in a Skype way, as we've done for some of our meetings, or the digital recording that we've talked about. That's the step we want to accomplish to keep the observation protocol going forward. And then we set a date of November 11th. That is, I recognize, a holiday. It's Veterans Day. And so if that just is unacceptable, just email me and let me know. That's not going to work, and we'll push it back 1 more week. But we just have, this is our only webinar until our final wrap-up one, and we'll talk about the final student SurveyMonkey surveys, and plus capturing any of your other reflections. So let me get to really the new material, and this is posted on our blog as of today, and it's just the observation protocol, and there's 2 components to it. One is the level of use, and I've got here, which I think is the current language that's in the protocol, and you can see it's just going to be a quick, a checklist type of thing over 3 different items and their level of use. The 3 items for level of use are discussion of core questions, instruction of key concepts, and the use of the activity protocol. Thus, I hope the activity protocol, that's no surprise. The language of key concepts, I'm not sure that we've emphasized that just as project jargon, but I think you'll recognize, again, just as we emphasized at the start of this webinar, what those are. For lesson 1, it's Heights 5 Intuitive Ethics. And then the discussion question itself, which I feel comfortable we have mentioned. So for lesson 1, the discussion question: what's morals? Is a moral situation? And whether, so the level of use, it wasn't used to generate any student reflection, or it was used, and so it's just a yes or no. And then the third little category there is that the teacher has adapted it somehow, and that adaptation is not a judgment anyway of good or bad or indifferent. It's just noting there's an adaptation, and that has to be made by us in terms of following up. But we want to be able to see, obviously, that in all 3 of these cases, the core question, the key concept, and the activity protocol, and this is, again, just for lesson 1. Lesson 2 would talk about what? It would talk about Turiel's lenses of moral reasoning, right? And so, and then the protocol would be the EDMA. So yeah, each lesson would have its own modest changes, but again, as a pilot and as a draft, we're going to welcome your feedback and see how you feel about this. And we're going to ask you to do self-evaluation on these as well. So there'll be just a little checklist that as you finish your lesson, you can check off how you feel you've done, and then I'll be doing that as well. So on the use of the protocol, students do not complete an AMAP, and obviously that we're hoping to avoid that case, right, where there just wasn't use of it. And then the level of use where they completed at least one, and yeah, we celebrate that there are some of you are having opportunities for the kids to complete multiple AMAPs. So that's the level of use aspect of it. The second part of our observation protocol is the quality of delivery, and we've got 5 different components there: the active engagement, the clear and accurate definitions, the procedural practice, clarity of organization, and the positive affect. And so we make these definitions on the accurate definition in row 2, column 2, that it's heights. We're talking about just lesson 1 right now, heights 5, intuitive ethics. And then the procedural practice, row 3, column 2, we're talking about the AMAP is going to be practiced. In this case, that there's the noticing, stating, identifying. Those are all 3 of the initial detailed components of the AMAP. So this is a pretty standard rubric. I'm not going to read all of this this afternoon, but I am asking, and in the spirit of our collaboration and in the spirit of piloting this kind of measurement, we're asking for you to read this over and just give us comment. And we'll try to make adjustments and finish this up within the week so that you can see all the different activity observation protocols. But I think you get a sense of it, that lesson 2 through 5 is going to be very similar. I mean, it's identical outline. There'll just be some word changes. Obviously, the protocols all change, and the key concepts change, and thus the definitions within those key concepts change. So, and I'm happy to take questions when I unmute the mics here in just a moment. We can take your comment and question about this, but I'd really appreciate your review of this, and then an email confirmation with me what your thoughts are of the utility of this observation. This is something that we're doing as researchers for piloting this process, and I think it's a good protocol, and hopefully it focuses all on what's important within the lessons. So the next thing we need to discuss is the scheduling of the observations. And so the first thing I'm asking for you to do is for you to sit down with your team, and we've placed a calendar on the blog so that you can see who else is scheduled. Right now no one's scheduled, so you could be the first. You could at least throw up when your lessons are going to be available. That doesn't mean that that's when I'm going to come and be able to observe, but at least we're going to have an idea of who's doing what when, with the idea that if it's possible, and this is not a mandatory thing, if it's possible, and you guys as team colleagues could say, you know what, we could all present a lesson today. It wouldn't even have to be the same lesson, obviously not in the same content area, but I mean, it wouldn't even, somebody could be doing lesson 1, somebody else could be doing lesson 2, and another person could be doing lesson 1, but you're recognizing that there's a shared date where this could possibly take place. And then obviously it can't happen during the same period, or that defeats the whole function, and it can't happen on Tuesdays. Tuesdays are my teaching day at the university, and it just wouldn't be time for me to make any commute except possibly West Haven High in the morning. But other than that, Tuesdays really doesn't work. But so I'm asking you to look at the possibility of shared dates. And again, if that doesn't work, if there aren't any shared dates, okay, so be it. But if you can see the possibility of working on that together, great, and that might really help, particularly if I'm traveling into New Jersey and several of you are doing lessons on the same day. That would be logistically very, very helpful. So then if you would then create your shared calendar, and then just shoot that off to me. And if there's any issue with the project blog calendar site, just do a hand one, and you can fax it to me or email it to me in some way. Or again, the project blog calendar is open for your editing. You have to be logged in through your Gmail account, and I believe it should work. We haven't tested it yet. Obviously, as with all things associated with our blog here, we might find there might be a problem. But I've tested it with one non-project person, and it works. So I'm hoping it will work for you. So then, and I've already mentioned this, if you can have your plan then to digitally record 1 or 2 of your lessons if I can't get to observe. So if I can get to observe 2 lessons, then you're totally off the hook on that one. You don't need to worry about it. But if it looks like I'm not going to be able to observe, then that's when the recording becomes quite important. And in the process of doing that, we do want to respect and honor the fact that without student permission, none of this could be made public. And so I think we're good there. But we want to protect the anonymity of you and the kids. Nothing of this is going to go on online. We would have to go through a permission process for everybody to provide that permission. That would include parents, right, for all the kids under 18. So, the goal here that I'm highlighting after following up our observation protocols, the idea of just how are we going to go forward with our scheduling, and I hope this makes sense and would welcome as speedy a reply so that we can put this schedule on the calendar and see where I'm going as quickly as possible. So now to your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw this up and then unmute everybody. The questions I just posing, what about the whole model as a whole? Individual components or any activities, any of the templates. Let's see if I can do this. Well, it's not. I'm sorry. Well, how about this? For some reason, it's not wanting to cooperate right now. If you could type in a question, I can see any typed in questions here. Does anyone have a question that they want to type in? Oh, there it is. Now you're unmuted. Does anybody have a question? If they have a mic, or if you don't have a mic, you can still type in.
David?
Yes.
Can the kids do these surveys from home, like with their computers from home, like if we give them the link?
They most certainly can. I don't know that I would encourage that. And here's why. The only experiences we've had where students don't do it all together tends to lend itself either to quitting on it or mischief. And we don't want either of those. And if everybody's doing it at the same time, they just seem to get it done, and there's less mischief. And what's mischief? We have open-ended responses that the students can respond to, and it is anonymous. So we can't point back and say, look at what Sarah just wrote on the on your responses. It is legitimately anonymous, and whether they believe that or not, it does lend itself to more issues. So we've got a limited sample size like that, but the only time we've really had problems was when the kids didn't do them together.
Okay. Also, another question.
Sure.
Will all the protocols or the rubrics be posted?
Yes.
on the blog, like prior to us giving the lessons? I know
Yes,
you have
absolutely. I want to have that up. I want to have that up by the end of the week. We wanted to get your feedback about about the outline first, because they're all so similar. And if you have, questions that can help us guide to improve that outline, then rather than do all 5 of them and then change all 5, I recognize we can just edit the 1 and then go forward and make the 5 in a similar pattern. So I'm hoping I'm hoping I'm ahead of the curve enough that nobody was planning on doing lessons before after Labor Day.
No, not here. We're going to get our kids underway with our regular program first.
But I could provide. I could, if you wanted to ask for all of. The templates are all done right now in the current fashion. But I wanted to get your feedback, and Jason and I just recognized, obviously more so after getting your lessons, we've recognized there's some powerful professionals here, and you can provide some good critique of this. Any other question or comment about this?
We're not even starting until the next Friday.
Oh, that's fine.
We may be a little bit behind.
No. That's absolutely fine. Some people, we'd want it to be getting wrapped up before too much into November, right? So that leaves you quite a bit of leeway in the semester. Obviously, we hope it can fire up quickly and proceed well for you. SurveyMonkey is ready to go. Yep, I have. The minute you send me an email, so Bob has asked if SurveyMonkey is ready. Yes, and your URL is ready, and so if you send me an email requesting that, I'll send it to you. So I threw up just some other boilerplate kind of questions. If there's any questions about Jason and my responsibilities. We're talking about the observation protocol. I will say this, that we've had encouraging signs from our funder, and so while no one's making any promises, we're hoping to be able to offer you a similar participation this coming spring for next fall, where it wouldn't be a pilot anymore. We would be having we'd need 2 classes, a control and an experimental class, but we'd be doing, with whatever changes we make from our learning experience together, and then the real experiment would be in play next fall. But that's our hope right now. Well, so again, here's the things that we're looking to do right now is as soon as possible, the student baseline should be taking place, and you'll be asking me just for your URL, and I'll send it to you, and that'll be the SurveyMonkey URL for all of your kids, and you look at it ahead of time so you can be aware of what that survey is all about. And then the scheduling and delivery of your lessons with my 2 observations, and then we do plan on student and teacher post-lesson assessment, the kids again with the SurveyMonkey. And with us, it'll be a SurveyMonkey as well as either I'm going to come visit you for some sort of focus group or some webinar activity like this, but we recognize that the visit is probably a better idea. Also note to yourself whether this November 11th date works or does not work for you. And just email me that as well. It's going to be it's the Monday of Veterans Day. So some schools are actually in session, some are not. And if you're not and you don't want to participate that day, we get it. So any other question for the good of the order here? Again,
no, thank you.
again, Jason and I are just, I mean, it's difficult to communicate how grateful we are for the participation that you're giving to us, and we're quite encouraged about how the project's going and excited about what can take place this fall. I hope you can share some of that enthusiasm. It's a cutting-edge thing we're doing, and no one has done it in the country yet. So if we get even a modicum of positive change with our kids, we're really onto something good. So thanks so much.
It's good though.
Thanks so much, folks. And if you're missing colleagues from your school, just remind them to hop on. I'll be able to get this recording up online by early tomorrow morning, and looking forward to your replies so we can move forward with the student survey and our scheduling of lessons. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.